Okay. Yesterday we were discussing a little bit of a shehiyah. Shehiyah, keeping food on Shabbos that's uncooked, keeping it on the flame. When Shabbos comes in, it's a problem. Someone asked me, and this is, you should be able to answer the shayla yourself. Someone asked me, what about keeping a timer on a hot plate? And you're not doing anything with the food. The food is staying there the entire Shabbos, and come Shabbos morning, 9 in the morning, the hot plate goes on. So by 12 o'clock when you eat your Suda, everything is warmed up. Is it a problem of Shehiyah or not? What would you say? Huh? No, it's cold. It's cold liquid. It's cold soup or whatever.
It's a liquid and it's
No, but you're not doing bishul. You're just keeping it on the hot plate.
Yeah, but that's what Shehiyah is.
Huh? That's what she is. Yeah. Even though you're not doing anything. Even though you're not doing anything. Excellent. Shehiyah by definition means you're not doing anything. You're just keeping food on the fire. When Shabbos comes in, you're having food on the fire. So what if someone was over on Shehiyah? We'll discuss that at a different time, but I just want to make a point. The chazonyisroel says that as soon as Shabbos comes in, you realize that you're over in Shehiyah, you got to take the food off the flame. You must take the food off the flame right away. Because the whole problem of Shehiyah is that you might come to be mechata. So in order to be misalik, in order to take away that problem, that chashash, take the food off the flame right away. Don't keep it on there. Okay. Interesting shayla comes up. What if it's still raw, and you know that raw meat, by the way, is muktzah? Even though in Hilchos muktzah, it's before Shulchan Aruch that raw meat is not muktzah. But the Shulchan says already that's only the times of the Gemara because they used to chew on raw meat. But nowadays, no one uses raw meat, no one chews raw meat. You only eat it once it's cooked. So on Shabbos, there's no use. Raw meat is pretty much muktzah machmas gufay. So
what about raw meat that can be used, that can be chewed?
And even though it can be chewed,
I know it's chewed. No, it's a delicacy that is chewed.
If it's a delicacy that people chew on, even though it's
built on.
If people do that, I'm not aware of such a meat.
Yeah,
That people,
the South African meats like that.
Yeah, that people chew on it, even though it's
it's like a very
interesting.
It's like
Posh of a meat.
in America, beef jerky in America isn't cooked; it's just salted.
Or built on as well.
That's what I'm talking about. Chinese flavor.
Is that so?
Yeah.
So I once saw Rav Scheinberg says that even raw meat, once it wasn't nichlal in the gzeira of muktzah, because in the times of Chazal it wasn't muktzah, so nowadays it's not muktzah as well. But Rav Shulchan and others say that even raw meat is muktzah. So what do? You have raw meat on the thing cooking. So mitzad echad it's shehiyah, you have to supposed to take it off the flame. Mitzad sheni, you can't touch it because it's muktzah. Only once it's cooked, it's not muktzah. So what do? Okay, so that's something we have to wait till muktzah. But shehiyah means that the fact that it's on the fire is problematic and you have to take it off. You must take it off as soon as you realize that you left it on the flame. Okay, now we spoke about mechab b'jasai. Mechab b'jasai means that as soon as it's cooked, either it's halfway cooked. We said the chazonish. What does it mean halfway cooked? You pretty much take the amount of time it takes to cook a certain thing, whatever you're cooking, and you cut it in half, and you take that amount of time. And once it's a half hour, so 45 minutes. If it takes an hour and a half, 45 minutes, that's already mechab b'jasai. According to the chazonish, Kaf HaChaim says that if you could eat it b'doichik, that's already mechab b'jasai. The question is, what if you make an early Shabbos? You make an early Shabbos, so by the time that you're Makabel Shabbos, it's not mechab b'jasai yet. But an hour later, Shkia, when Shkia actually comes, by that time it's already mechab b'jasai. It's already cooked enough to the point where you could eat it b'shas adchak. So, which one do you go basar? Do you go basar Kabbalah Shabbos or do you go basar Shkia? Kabbalah Shabbos. Why would you say Kabbalah Shabbos? Why? Because that's when Shabbos comes in for you.
You could just do any malach between when you do Shabbos and Shkia. Why is it different than any?
No, because here you're not doing anything. It's something which, it's the status of it being in an uncooked matzav, in an uncooked situation, that's problematic. So perhaps that uncooked situation which Chazal didn't want you to have is only when it's real Shabbos. But if it's your Kabbalah Shabbos, who says that Chazal asur? And if Shlomo Zalman in Mincha Shloima, he has a tshuva about it, and he writes that you go basar shkia. That means like this. That means you could put something, especially in the game here in Manchester, I'm assuming in the summer, where everyone is Makabel Shabbos early, right? Everyone makes an early Shabbos. So you have, from the time you make an early Shabbos, let's say you Makabel Shabbos at 7 o'clock, I don't know when plug is here in the summer, but 7, 8 o'clock, and Shkia is not till 10 something. Am I right or am I off? Yeah? Is it that way in the summer here? What? 12, sometimes even 12, really?
No, that's
Latest by 11.
Latest by 11.
Not Shkia.
No, not about say, it's about Shkia.
I see.
Shkia around 10 o'clock, right? 10 o'clock, and you make an early Shabbos, let's say 8 o'clock. You can make an early Shabbos already. So, you could technically, according to Shlomo Zalman, you could have something cooking as soon as you Mikal Shabbos, put up your soup or whatever it is, because by the time Shkia will come, it'll already be Mavushal, at least Kamaychel ben Jesai. So then there's no problem of Shehira, according to the Mekilin. And that's what Shlomo Zalman holds la halacha. But, of course, Shani b'machloikas, Rabbi Nitzan Karelitz in the Chotshani writes, know that you go Basa Kabbalah Shabbos. And therefore you have to be machmer. You have to be machmer and make sure that as soon as you Mikabel Shabbos, it's already cooked to the point of Kamaychel ben Jesai. There's another heter. This is a very interesting heter. Most people don't know this. And I have a story to share with you to prove that most people don't know this halacha. It's a bir halacha. Bir halacha says, I'll first give you the story, see what you say, before I mention the bir halacha. When we were living in Eretz Yisrael, last year, we had a yeshiva. It was right across the street from where we lived. Yeshiva was Bachram. And I used to be very close to the Rosh Yeshiva. And I would daven there often. And one Shabbos morning, the Bachram would eat by me a lot. And one Shabbos morning, I get a knock on my door, and I see a bunch of Bachram frantically asking me if I have any cholent for them. Have any leftover cholent. Like, what's going on? What happened to the yeshiva's cholent? I was like, what happened? He said, well, we didn't realize, but we were over on Shehiyah. And once you're over on Shehiyah, you're not allowed to eat it. It's Ma'aseh Shabbos, you're not allowed to eat it. So what happened? They left it totally, Erev Shabbos was totally uncooked. And basically, on Shabbos it was cooking without a blech, or without anything separating the flame from the pot. So they're over in Shehiyah, so they can't eat it. It wasn't cooked. When Shabbos came in, it wasn't cooked. Shabbos came, it wasn't cooked. So basically cooked on Shabbos in a matzav of Shehiyah. So the problem was that, they didn't explain to me that was the problem. They just told me that the halachic problem with the cholent. So anyway, unfortunately I didn't have cholent for them, but later on, I found out that the problem was this problem, that they left in the matzav where they thought they were over in Shehiyah, and therefore they can't eat the cholent. Now anyone would have been able to perhaps share a heter with them and say that you could eat the cholent.
There's no problem with Shia if it's for the following day.
Very good. Oh, at least somebody knows. There's no problem if it's for the following day. The Bir Halacha says something very interesting. He says, what's the problem of Shehiyah? The problem of Shehiyah is that you might come to stoke the coal, Shami Yechata, right? So that Shami Yechata is only if you're going to want to eat it at night, so you're going to want to make sure the food is ready on time, so you're going to be Mechata the Gecholim to make sure to hurry up the bishul process. But if the food is a type of food, which the food is only eaten during the day, like cholent, well then I was thinking maybe the Yeshiva Baruchim eat cholent Friday night as well, so it's not such a good heter. But if it's a cholent, let's say, right, it's in the summer and you're having the Suda very late and you're not going to eat cholent Friday nights, it's not the winter, long Friday nights, the winter, so there's a heter that since the food is a food that's eaten usually only during the day, the Bir Halacha says you could rely on this, only that you shouldn't be a regilus. The Bir Halacha says, a person can't rely on this heter every single Shabbos. If it happens once or twice and you forgot to put a blech, so if it's a type of food that you usually eat the following day, so there's no problem of Shehiyah and you can rely on this Bir Halacha. There's another heter, which I'd like to discuss just for the next 2 minutes, Kidra Chaisa. Kidra Chaisa is if you put a raw piece of meat inside whatever you're cooking, a raw piece of chicken or meat, and it's not going to cook until much later after the time that you eat the Suda Friday night. And it's also a heter for the same reason, because then you're Mesiach Das from the food, because you understand that it's anyways not going to be ready Friday night when you're eating the Suda, so there's no point in stoking the coals. So once you're Mesiach Das, so it's also a heter of Kidra Chaisa, yes.
I thought the custom like Chalanya, and he it's only Rabban who Kidra Chaisa on the has to run on your side.
Well, according to Chananya, it's also negates. It's a Gemara Kidra
Chaisa.
Yeah, of course, because according to Chananya, if it's not official Ma'achal B'Jesai, right, there's Shehiyah on that.
And he also has the head of Kidra Chaisa.
And he also has the head of Kidra Chaisa, yes. The heter of Kidra Chaisa, he also holds up, sure. The problem is that nowadays you can't rely on this heter of Kidra Chaisa because it's not practical. Because what's Kidra Chaisa? Kidra Chaisa means that you put in a piece of food into the pot, whatever you're cooking, that piece of food won't be ready till Friday night Suda. And therefore you Mesiach Das, that's the story, you Mesiach Das from the entire pot. You're not going to come to stoke the coals. But the problem is that nowadays, with our cooking utensils and all the things, I'm saying it takes just an hour or two to cook anything.
Well, like,
it cooks pretty quick.
Use that head for cholent. Does cholent will take a long time?
Yeah, if you're cooking in a crock pot and it takes a very long time to actually cook the cholent, and you know for sure that the cholent won't be ready Friday night by the Suda, it won't be even edible Kamaichel Ben Jisai, that's the same heter as but there's one crucial thing you have to know. The Kidra Chaisa is you have to have the meat that you're putting in there, the raw food, it has to be raw by Shkia. According to Shlomo Zalman, you go after Shkia, so it has to be raw by Shkia, which is almost impossible because what does raw mean? Raw means before it's chazonish says that raw is for Kidra Chaisa, what's the status of raw? Raw is before Yatsu Ledas. It's almost impossible. As soon as it's Yatsu Ledas, it's already a scholas bishul, and then you don't have the heter of Kidra Chaisa anymore. So Kidra Chaisa is not so negeya. I wouldn't recommend relying on this heter. There's an interesting Masa Matan with Rabbi Shlomo Zalman and Rabbi Moshe. In Degros Moshe, they have the chuvas. Shlomo Zalman wrote to Rabbi Moshe back and forth. At the end, Rabbi Moshe was agreed with Rabbi Shlomo Zalman about bones in a cholent or anything. Let's say you have what? Let's say you're cooking. No, let's say you're cooking a food which is basically ready. It's basically edible, right? So there's no shahiyah on that. But what if the bones still need to be cooked? Some people eat the bones. They eat the marrow, and the bones would take a lot longer. It takes much more time to cook the bones than the beans and the barley and the cholent and the kishka, right? So you have the kishka and the beans and the barley, everything is ready in the cholent. But the marrow and the bones, right, the bones are hard. In order to soften it and to cook it, takes much longer. So Rabbi Shlomo Zalman writes, Shmir Shabbos brings him down actually. Shmir Shabbos Kolchasa says, Rabbi Shlomo Zalman says that if you have bones which are uncooked, there's a problem of shehiyah on that as well. And Reb Moshe in the Tshuva says, he discusses in the Tshuva whether you're allowed to close the lid of a cholent, the cover, when everything is cooked. So there's no bishul if you close the lid. But let's say the bones aren't cooked yet, so is there bishul on that? So Rav Yosef says it's mutter because you're not mechavan for it. And Reb Moshe also seems to go with that. But Reb Moshe agrees to Reb Shlomo Zalman, if the derech is you're mechavan because you want to eat the bones, you want it to be ready, then avad that's called bishul if you're closing the lid onto the cholent, even though everything is cooked besides the bones. And the Huwa did the same thing as by shehiyah. Shlomo Zalman holds that there's a problem of shehiyah if the bones aren't cooked. That's what Shabbos says. And Rav Moshe will hold, just like there's no problem of bishul if your kavon is not for the bones, there's no problem of shehiyah as well. Yeah, it's just an interesting fact. They say, what's the makar machlokes? Makar machlokes is because in Eretz Yisrael, Shlomo Zalman was from Israel, and in Eretz Yisrael they eat the bones. And Rav Moshe was from America. America the derech wasn't to eat the bones like that. So Rav Moshe writes to Rav Shlomo Zalman that if the derech is to eat the bones, then of course you're right. So Rav Moshe wrote his tshuva metchila because of what he was used to and what he was exposed to in America, that people don't usually eat bones of the chicken or whatever it is, the meat. And Shlomo Zalman wrote it according to what he was exposed to in Eretz Yisrael that they do.